Perfect, it works. All right, guten Morgen, half a day, Häkchen. Look at that, they have dyslexic font. I'm gonna say yes. Games volume. Yeah. Yeah, why not, you know, feel the ambience. Play in a dark room and wear headphones for the best experience. I mean, it's pretty dark in here. Before you get into the game, there are a few things that you might want to know, okay? Or not, it's your choice. Tutorial, yes. Also, I don't need this. I'm gonna unplug it. If you've already played visual novels, then you might be familiar with these shortcuts. But just in case you aren't, please tell me. With control or the right trigger, you can skip already read text. Okay, so control, tab, the double arrows, or right clicking, okay. With tab, you can toggle skipping. Toggle skipping. You can also press the fast forward button on the bottom right of this text box. By pressing the play button on the right of the text box, you can toggle autoplay. This, I'm assuming? I might need to move my camera out of the way. This advances the text automatically. After pressing it, it will turn into a pause button with which you can stop autoplay. Oh my god, autoplay that works. There have been a few visual novels where it didn't. You can set the autoplay, the time will wait before advancing under settings. Okay. I feel like this is good. With H or the middle mouse button, you can hide the user interface if you'd like to see the CGs in all their glory. Ooh. Ooh. You can also press the Y button on your gamepad. That's so funny, I just unplugged my gamepad. I'm also going to move myself around a bit. Does the same. Good to know. Pressing escape, start, or right mouse button opens the game menu. It's a little bigger. Alternately, you can also press the quick menu. I'm gonna hide up here. It's a good place to hide. Put that there. Put this up here. You can view the text history by using the mouse wheel, left bumper, or the page up button. Probably left mouse button then. V toggles assistive self-voicing. Wait. You can also turn on other accessibility options like dyslexic font and audio cues in the setting.
Self-voicing enabled. You can also turn on other accessibility options like dyslexic font and audio cues in the settings.
Oh my god, yes. Yes! Hold on.
Auto. You can also turn on other auto.
Oh.
There's also an option to change the game's brightness in the settings.
But if auto voicing is on, then auto text is not going to move?
Note that hiding the UI temporarily ignores your brightness setting until the UI is shown again. One thing that should be noted is that you can play through the upcoming doors in any order. You don't need to play them left to right. Some audio events in this game also make use of stereo effects. Thus it's best to enjoy the game with headphones. The rest should be pretty self-explanatory. Don't disappoint her.
What? Who? Wait, who? Okay, well.
Close.
Check out the settings. Text speed, autoplay time. I'm gonna say large, because I'm blind.
Text speed. Deactivate.
Deactivate. Brightness, settings, controls, about, feedback, quit.
Audio cues. Audio cues selected.
What do they mean?
Contents, brightness, text size, text speed, autoplay time, music volume.
Oh.
Contents.
Okay.
Close.
Also, I should note, just in case no one knows, this is a horror visual novel, and it's inspired by horror manga artists. So think like, God, what was it called? The Hole or The Shape? Pretty much anything spooky you've read, just imagine that. So if you're not comfy with it, here's your warning now, because I saw some of the screenshots and I was like, we need to play this.
Door.
The door.
Close.
Okay, audio cues is off. Welcome to a world of distorted minds.
My eyes were burning.
Really? Okay, so hold on.
Self-voicing disabled.
It feels like hot coals were lying on my eyelids, but if I do this,
Self-voicing enabled.
it turns it off.
It felt like hot coals were lying on my eyelids.
One day we'll find a game where it can do both.
I slowly opened them and attempted to heave myself up from the cold asphalt. But I failed. My whole body was heavy and my head felt like it was being squashed by a hydraulic press. After a few attempts, I finally succeeded and tried to make out where I was. The fog in my mind lifted slowly and I realized that I was in a dark alleyway. My vision was still blurry and I had trouble keeping my eyes open. But I could tell that I had never seen this place before. Slowly my heart began to race. Was I abducted? Mugged? What had happened to me? I hastily checked my body, fortunately finding no wounds. Why was I feeling this weak then? Maybe I was drugged. As I tried to recall what might have happened to me, my eyes finally focused. I could see a house in front of me. It was the only house on the street with its lights on. The dirty yellow glow shone through almost every single visible window. I felt some relief knowing that the tenants were awake. Perhaps they could tell me where I was. I approached the front door. It took me some searching to find the doorbell through the overgrown ivy. A deep gong rang out from within the house when I pressed it. The sound, amplified by the cold wind cutting through my shirt, made me tense up. What an odd choice for a doorbell sound, I thought while rubbing my upper arms to warm myself. I waited. No one answered. My mind twisted in confusion. Why was no one coming? I rang the doorbell again. Then I tried knocking. No response. No one was coming. I didn't understand. Did they forget to turn off the lights and go on vacation? As a last resort, I tried turning the doorknob and...
Oh, we're breaking and entering.
It actually opened.
I guess technically it's just entering / trespassing.
This worried me. Did something happen to the family living here? Perhaps I should find a phone and call the police. Suddenly a loud crash echoed through the street. My heart started to pound as my body tensed up. I wanted to dash into the house, but my feet refused to move. What was that sound? Was someone out here? Pictures of otherworldly monsters and armed kidnappers popped into my mind as my eyes scanned the darkness.
Oh.
The world was silent once more. I was still on edge, but my body slowly started to relax as I regained my composure. I decided I didn't want to find out what that was. Cautiously, I stepped through the threshold and firmly closed the door behind me. I entered a dimly lit hallway. The contours of minimalist furniture were illuminated by the street lights outside. I felt an immediate lurch of guilt as I was trespassing into a stranger's home.
Looks nice, though.
Scott, hello. Is anyone here? No answer. The house was eerily quiet. I cautiously ventured further down the front hall and stopped in front of one of the doors. A dim, yellow light seeped silently through the bottom crack. I turned the knob. Locked. Then the next one. Also locked. They all seemed to be. I frowned. Why were the lights behind these locked doors lit? It gave me an uneasy feeling. The door at the very end of the hall was the only one that I hadn't tried yet. I grasped its handle and turned it slowly. It swung open to complete darkness. Once again my body tensed up while my mind started to conjure horrific images. A beast with dislocated limbs and crooked teeth creeping towards me from the darkness. A floor littered with corpses and walls stained with blood. A giant spider sitting in a corner, waiting for its chance to strike. An exception has occurred. 1.1.0 7.5.1.220708081.
Wait!
Windows 10, while running game
Wait!
code.
Is this
Type
is this
error.
part of it?
Sequence item 0. Rollback.
What? No. Is this part of it? This has to be part of it.
Ignore.
To additional errors.
Open.
Sure.
An
I'm sorry,
exception has occurred.
but an
1.1.0. 7.5.1. Copy BB code. Copy markdown. Rollback.
Wait, they're being serious.
Ignore. A giant spider sitting in a corner. Self-voicing disabled.
I'm gonna turn off self-voicing. My hands shook as I reached to flick on the light. It was an utterly ordinary bedroom. Wait, so was it because self-voicing was on? Oh, I gotta keep it on now. I want to find more bugs.
Self-voicing. My heartbeat slowly calmed down as I realized that I seemed to be safe.
Sorry. It's my weird ability to find bugs in games, man. It struck me again. I was like, wait, is this actually part of it? Because if so, that'd be super meta.
I felt almost silly getting scared of nothing. A quick search yielded nothing but barren, dusty shelves. The bed was the only meaningful object present. Slowly but surely a wave of fatigue washed over me. With my adrenaline rush fading away, I found that I was more exhausted than I had realized. Like a worm wiggling its way into an apple, a single thought slowly invaded my mind. I had to sleep. Trying to fight it made it worse, as if some outside power was affecting me. Sleeping in a stranger's bed in a stranger's home was the last thing I wanted to do right now. But it was soon the only thing I could think about as my consciousness faded. I had to sleep. The world turned dark and the soft covers of the bed pulled me deeper and deeper into the black abyss.
Ooh. Ooh? Distorted Mind Comics. Ah! Oh boy. Looks like we're gonna have a grand old time.
Choose a door to start.
Okay, one's got scratchies, one has bloody
Choose
hands.
a door to start. Door 2. Door 1.
I'll just start from the beginning. First door. Oh! She's an okay cat. Can I pet the cat? Pets. Debts. No, pets. That's a P. I can read, I swear.
I shot awake, panting heavily, my clothes sticking to my skin due to all the sweat. My eyes darted around the room, but everything was quiet. I seemed to be safe. A nightmare. Seems like I just had a nightmare. I couldn't remember it anymore, but it must have been horrifying. Chills were still running down my spine. It was just a dream. Just a nightmare. Nothing more. After calming down, I decided to take another look around the house. The fact that no one was here, even though the lights were on, was still nagging at the back of my mind. But I was more confident that I'd be able to find help now that it was daytime. I left the bedroom to retry the doors, just in case. They were still locked. I just wanted to go home and take a shower. I smelled my clothes and they indeed had started to smell slightly sour. This place seemed to have nothing left to offer. I'd be better off out in the streets now that it was daytime. If I wasn't missing my wallet, then I would be getting something to eat as well. I was starving. I left the house for the bright sunlight.
Okay.
The back street didn't seem so bad anymore. I found it to be rather cozy and quaint. I made my way down the path until I heard the faint sound of conversation in the distance. A weight lifted from my heart when I first glimpsed people walking around in a pedestrian area.
Sorry.
There weren't many of them, and as I looked around I got the feeling that this was a rather small town.
Okay, so I'm not from here.
Trees and flowers were planted at regular intervals, which gave it more of a rural atmosphere. It didn't matter. I could finally ask for help. "Scott, excuse me, could you tell me where I am?" The woman blinked at my approach. She frowned and scowled in my general direction. "Woman, this is Kajamath."
Jamith?
She looked uncomfortable talking to me, so I thanked her and let her be. Kajamath. I had never heard of a town with that name. Where? How did I end up here? The thought of being somewhere I didn't recognize scared me. How was I supposed to get back home if I didn't have the slightest idea where to go? I took a deep breath to calm myself down. My next best bet would be asking someone to allow me to make a call from their mobile phone. I approached an older man in a business suit. "Scott, excuse me, may I use your phone?"
I would head to either like the police, maybe a library to look for a map, train station, bus station, something.
"Scott, I'm a bit lost and would like to call a friend of mine, so he can pick me up." His lips curled into a grimacing frown. "Man, sorry, I'm in a bit of a hurry." I approached person after person. No one wanted to lend an unkempt, half-dressed stranger their phone. As I made my way through a side street, I overheard two elderly women. "Loud woman, I heard of some violent incidents recently." "Loud woman, most got away with just a flesh wound, saying that they were attacked by someone or something." "Timid woman, yeah, I heard that too. I wonder if it has anything to do with the pet disappearances." "Timid woman, I heard of another cat that hadn't come back in several days."
Okay.
I was so focused on the conversation that I almost ran into a girl. I mumbled an apology until I realized that she had approached me on purpose. "Girl, hi. Scott, hi. Girl, you need to call someone, right?" She extended her hand and offered me her phone.
Oh.
"Scott, how did you know?" "Girl, I've seen you asking people for one." She nervously shuffled her feet and glanced away. "Scott, thank you. I won't take long." I took her phone. It was a red flip phone with a small panda hanging from a strap. The top bar read "May's phone." Her background was set to a picture of herself in a pedestrian area. That place in the picture looked oddly familiar, but I was likely just imagining it. I brushed that thought aside and dialed a friend's number. But the call didn't go through. I tried it again, but the result was the same.
You know what's bad? I don't know any of my friends' numbers because I don't really call anyone, and I usually don't even text. I'll use like Instagram or like Facebook or like, you know, Discord. Like I don't have anyone's info.
Maybe their phone was turned off. I tried my parents' house phone. Then my job's front desk. Then my boss's personal cell. Each time the call failed, I was sure that I had the right numbers. Maybe the phone had a bad connection? "Scott, it seems like the calls won't connect for some reason." Maybe you will have more luck trying a landline. My phone does act up sometimes." "Scott, you might be right. Still, thank you." I didn't want to hold her up any longer, so I gave her the phone back. After a rushed farewell, I wanted to quickly look for another way to get in contact with someone. It occurred to me that
Sorry,
I
I'm
should
reading
have
faster.
asked her for directions to the police station.
Yes.
I turned to look for her, but she had already vanished. As I made my way through town, I could definitely feel the tension in the air. She was right, everyone was on edge. While I was passing by an alleyway, something caught my eye.
Also, to make it darker, should I do this? Darkish. It's darkish, it's spooky.
They were too big to be rats. I couldn't really make anything out other than their eerie, glowing eyes.
Nope.
Maybe it was a cat gang searching the trash for food. Apropos food, I was starving. But I couldn't possibly ask random people to feed me. And since my wallet was missing, I didn't have any money on me to buy something. Though, there were oddly tempting looking plants growing nearby. Buds fixed on thick stems were sticking out of the ground. Each plant was surrounded by a number of small mushrooms. As I stared at them, I felt a pull. Their strange appearance hypnotized me, and without me noticing, my feet inched closer, and closer, and closer.
No, don't eat.
Don't.
Hello?
Eat them.
Mouse? No! Mouse! Mouse!
Don't eat them.
I think the game is doing this because, this is no longer plugged in, so I know it's not doing it, and it seems odd that it would suddenly...
I broke away from the hypnotic pull of the plants.
Try to get me, game?
What was I thinking? It didn't matter how hungry I was, they may be poisonous. But my hunger was beginning to gnaw at my insides. My vision grew blurry. Who knew how long it had been since I had eaten?
I know, but you don't know these mystery plants.
Suddenly I collapsed and the world around me vanished.
Oop. Did I die?
It was dark when I awoke. It seemed like no one had bothered to help me.
Oh.
I tried to get up. But I couldn't. My whole body was paralyzed from hunger. Something was shuffling by my ear. I felt the sniffing of an animal. It lost interest and walked past me toward the plants. I heard more follow. As they padded into view, I noticed that something was off about them. It must have been my mind playing tricks on me. My hunger was overwhelming. Something about their bodies was wrong. They started to eat the plants. They were smacking rather loudly and made unnatural, fleshy sounds. Every now and then one would pause and give off a low growl that didn't at all sound like a cat's. It was more like a slightly higher-pitched bear growl. After a while the sounds diminished and I felt their presence vanish. I gathered my strength and forced myself to my feet. What had just happened? What were those creatures? The violent crimes that I had heard about earlier popped into my mind. My hands began to shake. What would have happened if I hadn't been paralyzed and if they had noticed that I was still alive? I took a cautious look around. Most house lights were still lit. I mustn't have been out for long. Once again my body gave off a deep growl.
Tell your body to shush its face. It's gonna get you killed, buddy.
It was as if my stomach was eating itself. I had to get some food or else I was in danger of collapsing again. Should I ask someone living nearby for help? Or should I take another look around town?
I would say take a look around, because...
Take a look around.
Yeah, just trying to get people to borrow a phone or tell you where you are. They were like, so...
No one would open their door for a disheveled stranger. Instead of wasting my time going from house to house, I should take another look around town. I should be able to find a police station eventually. I picked a random direction and headed off, but I soon realized that finding a police station proved to be more difficult than expected. The streets were completely empty, meaning I couldn't ask anyone for directions. And the further I went, the more abandoned the apartment buildings looked. Did I wander into a deserted part of town by accident? As I wandered through the dark alleyways, an odd feeling started to well up within me. It felt as if I was being watched. I took a look around. My eyes scanned the buildings, which were being barely illuminated by the dim street lights. I spotted something at the entrance of an alleyway.
Bruh, our boy and his alleyways, they're just not going too well together.
It looked like a small figure. Whatever it was too dark to make out. My eyes were probably just playing tricks on me. It must have been a garbage can or something. I tried to rationalize what I had seen and continued at a faster pace. Was I overreacting? There was one way to find out. I made a sharp turn away from the main street and abruptly stopped. If someone really was following me, then I would be able to ambush them as they entered this alleyway. I realized too late that they would have the advantage if they had a weapon with them. Someone was there. I braced myself. Right as they were about to turn into the alleyway, I jumped out, fists raised. The person gave a shriek and stumbled backwards, falling onto the floor. Just as I was about to question them why they were following me, I realized they weren't a threat. The person who had followed me was a small boy. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with fear. "Scott, why? Why were you following me?" I slowly unclenched my fists. An exception has occurred. 1.1.0 7.5.1.220708001 Windows 10.
My bad. Hold on.
I slowly unclenched my fists.
Hold on. Hold on.
Self-voicing disabled.
So anytime there's jiggle text, the game is like, no self-voicing with this. I need help for my sister. Your sister? He seemed to realize that I wasn't playing to hurt him and slowly got up. Yeah, she's hurt. I was only following you to see if you were one of them. I had a ton of questions, but if his sister was a danger, then my first priority should be helping her. Alright, show me where your sister is. I'm gonna keep the voice thing off just for a second. Also, I feel like it's too dark. There. His face brightened and he led me back down the way I had just come from. Now that he knew that I wasn't trying to hurt him, he became quite talkative. I'm Lanny, by the way. My sister's name is Amy. Okay, so maybe now that I don't have shaky scared text, should be fine.
Self-voicing. Lanny, we are currently hiding from those pets in one of the abandoned houses. Lanny, have you seen one yet? They're really scary. His words were flowing out like a waterfall. As self-voicing disabled.
What's the stuff in the top left? I don't remember seeing that. Also, I should save. I feel like it's fine. I haven't saved it all.
Self-voicing enabled. His words were flowing out like a waterfall. As he made a short pause to breathe, I quickly intersected. 59.9 FPS. Scott, what pets are you talking about? And what did you mean when you said I wasn't one of them? 59.8. Lanny,
okay.
You really don't know? Self-voicing disabled.
How do I get rid of this thing in the top corner? Oops. Advanced dialogue. Navigate, escape. Skips dialogue, toggles dialogue, opens text, hides the user, takes a screenshot, toggles. I don't know how he got it. It just showed up. I guess I'm reading. He seemed to be deep in thought, but before he could elaborate, we had already arrived. Amy's in here. We were standing in front of an old abandoned house. Several of the windows were broken. One of them was partly boarded up with wooden planks. Lanny stopped in the entryway. I was about to ask him what we were waiting for when he started whistling quietly. Damn, he's good. I don't think I can even whistle. Nope. Nope. Can't whistle. It was a slow and somber melody that reverberated throughout the empty halls of the building. The atmosphere created sent shivers down my spine. And then it was over. Lanny stepped into the hallway and I followed quickly behind him. Seeing how stumped I was, he explained. It's something Amy and me agreed on. If she hears someone come in, she's supposed to run away unless I whistle this melody. I came up with it today. Pretty good, eh? The melody, I mean. The plan was alright, I guess, but it was Amy's. We made our way inside, walked up the stairs, and stopped in front of a dark room. Not far from the entrance, I could make out a shadowy figure sitting on the ground. Amy, it's me. I brought someone. I hope I'm not food. Amy perked up as she heard her brother's voice. I quickly stepped inside and was about to rush to her, but jerked back. Her arms. Oh my goodness! What happened to your arms? What happened to your arms? What happened? I had whispered it, but it seemed like Amy had heard me nevertheless. I ate a piece of the plants. Oh, thank God I didn't eat them. Then my arms began to hurt, and now she broke off. How could eating a piece of plant have caused this? That didn't make any sense, but I had more urgent things to do at the moment. Does one of you have a telephone? We need to call an ambulance. Lanny looked at me apologetically. There's no one at the hospital. They're all either dead or they're too obsessed with the pets. No one at the hospital? And you mentioned those pets again. Just what the hell was going on here? Just as I was about to ask, I heard a thumping sound from within the house. Lanny jerked around, fear-stricken. Is it them? Amy's voice was weak. She was about to faint. Her arms must have been causing her a lot of pain. Yeah. I'll check it out. You two stay here. I tried to sound confident, but my voice shook slightly. After what Lanny had told me, I couldn't help but feel scared. But as the only adult here, I had to be the one to protect them. And so I slowly made my way back down the stairs. I heard something yet again. It sounded vaguely like a growl. One that was oddly similar to the one I had heard while I was laying in the alleyway. Could it be one of those pets? As I reached the bottom of the stairs, I could vaguely make out some slight movement further down the hall. It was as if something was sniffing the air. I looked around to see if I could use anything as a weapon. There was indeed a wooden board lying on the ground near a window next to me. I carefully picked it up and gripped it tightly while inching closer and closer towards the creature. Weirdly enough, it seemed like it was ignoring me. As I was almost close enough to make out what it looked like, it perked up. I stopped. Time seemed to slow to a halt. A foul feeling slowly spread throughout my stomach. I lifted the board up a bit higher and readied myself to attack. And then it lunged. I closed my eyes and flailed the wooden plank in the general direction of the creature, but only hit empty air. It was over, I thought. I had missed it, now it would kill me. But nothing happened. All I heard was something scurrying up the stairs. I opened my eyes and whipped my head around towards the source of the sound, but the creature had already reached the top of the stairs. And then I heard a scream. It was Lanny. I ran upstairs. Amy was still lying in the same spot, but it seemed like she had finally fallen unconscious. Next to her was a blood trail leading into another room. Lanny couldn't have been. A sound of breaking bones and fleshy smacking leaked out of the room. I knew what was happening without having to see it. I'll admit, this is a good sound. I lifted my weapon without even thinking, and was just about to step closer to the room's entryway. But I stopped. There was no way I could fight whatever it was with a rotten wooden plank. And I couldn't save Lanny anymore. It was too late. I needed to get out of here. No, more importantly, I needed to get Amy out of here. There had to be someone out there who could help us. Lanny's words echoed in my head, but he couldn't have been right. The police would do something about this, wouldn't they? Or the military? I was about to go back towards Amy, but a sudden wave of fatigue came over me. It was as if I had stepped into a veil. The air had gotten heavier and my breathing became more ragged. I clutched my chest as I tried to figure out what was going on. A throbbing pain pulsed through my back. It was as if something had stabbed me. I tried to turn around, but I'd already become too weak. My feet gave in and my vision darkened. I could feel a presence near me. Was it that monster? Before I could find out, my consciousness faded. Oh. Achievement unlocked. You're twisting my arm. Wait, I have so many questions. Okay. Give me that next door. Oh. Oh boy. You know, when you open a door, you're not expecting like 50 heads to be right there just being like, ah. That's great. Love it. All about it. Just, just, ah. Is that what was eating the plant? I shot awake, panting heavily, my clothes sticking to my skin due to all the sweat. My eyes started around the room. Ooh, it's gone. But everything was quiet. Quiet. I seem to be safe. A nightmare. Seems like I just had a nightmare. There was some kind of animal or monster, and there was some eerie plant. Okay, I'm gonna see if it can talk by itself.
Self-voice. I had forgotten most of the dream, but I knew that it must have been terrifying.
I need water.
The pulsing pain in my head slowly subsided. I took deep breaths and kept mumbling to myself that it had all been a dream. Nothing more. After calming down, I decided to take another look around the house. The fact that no one was here, even though the lights were on, was still nagging at the back of my mind. A look out of the window confirmed that it was still night. I had either slept for a whole day or only for a few hours. Considering how tired I felt, it must have been the latter. I left the bedroom to retry the doors, just in case. They were still locked. I really wanted to go home and take a shower. I smelled my clothes and they indeed had started to smell slightly sour. This place seemed to have nothing left to offer. I'd be better off out in the streets, even if it was still dark. Save slot 5.
We're just gonna...
Save slot...
We're gonna save
I'd be
real
better
quick.
off out... All I needed to do was find a police station. They'd definitely be able to help me. As I wandered around, I grew more and more aware of how big this town was.
Big? Ooh, interesting.
The buildings were tall and nature was rather scarce. The streets, however, were completely empty. Suddenly my ears began to pick up the subtle sounds of laughter. The sounds turned to unease in my empty stomach. It was awfully late for such a public crowd. There wasn't cheering or rounds of applause. Just laughter. Loud and obnoxious laughter that didn't seem to subside or grow. It became louder as I approached the town center.
I'm concerned.
Soon it turned into a wave of commotion by what sounded to be a massive crowd. They just laughed, and kept laughing. It sounded dreadful. I was tempted to change course and avoid them. Yet this direction was my best bet for finding an inn or a police station. These priorities outweighed my sense of danger. I pressed on. The laughter was bellowing with hundreds of voices, until finally I could glimpse the source of the commotion. The crowd gathered around a performer who was doing something to make them laugh.
Uh-oh.
I strained to see the action, peeking through the small gaps between the people while keeping a safe distance. The group was just too dense. I couldn't see any details. Curiosity overwhelmed me and I started pushing through the people. They seemed to melt away without paying me much attention. As I approached, I passed a table with books. I couldn't make out their title, but I could see something that resembled a mask on the cover. Paying it no mind, I pressed onward. I couldn't understand what was happening. The performer wasn't making any sounds. I couldn't make out any movement from beyond the crowd either. What was so entertaining? Finally I reached the front. But what I saw was the opposite of funny. It was horrifying.
Okay. Okay, so if he's not making any sounds and he's laughing. Okay, hi.
What was wrong with his head?
He's got 3 faces, maybe 4.
He turned his hips so that everyone in the crowd could have a clear view.
His hips.
As if he didn't want anyone to miss it. Scott, why are people laughing at this?
I like the music.
A bystander heard me. I don't know, his face just seems so funny. I mean, look at it. I stared at him in disbelief.
Okay.
He and the others really did seem to find this funny. Were they seeing something I wasn't? No matter how I looked at it, it didn't seem like anything other than disturbing. I averted my gaze and walked away. I wanted nothing to do with this madness.
Maybe check out the book?
I continued to comb through the town center while trying to keep my distance from the crowd. Soon I noticed that the sun had already started to rise. And I still hadn't found anything that even vaguely resembled a police station. It's kind of creepy, isn't it?
You're the girl from the first door.
I had walked by a girl that was standing nearby. She was watching the crowd from a distance. Scott, yeah, it is. I was glad to hear that someone else was thinking the same. An awkward pause followed. I had been under the impression that she wanted to start up a conversation. But I guess that wasn't the case. My stomach broke the silence. Girl, are you hungry? Blood shot to my face. It was true that I was feeling starved. Swallowing my pride, I nodded. Girl, I have a sandwich with me, you can have it? Scott, are you sure? Girl, no worries, I'm not hungry anyways. I had to hold myself back as to not lunge onto it. But I kept my cool and ate it cautiously as to not embarrass myself. Some of my strength returned to me.
Sorry, I had a cough.
In the meanwhile, I decided to ask her about this town. Girl, sorry, I don't really know my way around here that well. Scott, oh, so you're not from here? Girl, no, not really. Maybe I could help you look. I'm feeling a bit uneasy about being alone here anyways. I glanced back in the direction of the laughing crowd.
Hi, X! Heck Ian, how are you doing today? We are playing this lovely game, which is like visual novel, horror, manga inspired. Sorry, apparently I got really excited when you came in.
Scott, sure, I would really appreciate that. I'm Scott, by the way. May, I'm May, nice to meet you.
What you got going on today, X? Frankly, if we're on door 2 of 3, we might be able to start the third penumbrum today.
We set off to look for help. The idea to call someone I knew from May's phone came up, but she didn't have it on her, unfortunately. We approached several people to ask them for directions. But all of them seemed to ignore us.
Very nice, X, very nice. Hope your weekend treats you well.
I tried to make some small talk with May every now and then. But her replies were always short and didn't leave much room for follow-ups. But she perked up when I asked her about her family. May, I have a sister. At first I thought that would be all I'd get out of her, but she continued after a short pause. May, she's been home more recently. May, usually she'd leave early and return late or not return home at all for several days. May, her job is really important, so it makes sense. May, but I was really happy when she told me that she wouldn't go to work for a while. May, I assumed she was finally able to request some time off. May, but she continued to work even at home. May hung her head. It seemed like I had touched on a sensitive topic. I thought of ways to console her or cheer her up, but couldn't come up with anything to say. Since I didn't have any siblings, it was hard to relate. But it seemed like she really loved her sister. I could actually relate more to May's sister. Just as her, I too have barely been home due to my work. And just like her, I'd likely be working even if I was home. But as opposed to May's sister, I didn't have anyone who was expecting me back home. I decided against poking any further and instead shifted my focus back to asking people for directions. Without much luck. Oddly enough, it was as if they were all going in the same direction, the town center. Scott, do you think they're going to see that performer? Silence. Maybe she just hadn't heard me. I turned around to ask her again, but she was nowhere to be seen.
May?
Just as I finished that thought, I felt a presence behind me.
Is it the performer?
I slowly turned around.
Oh, Jesus! Hi! Wait, wasn't that the guy that I talked to earlier?
Scott, what the hell? What do you think? Do I look funny?
Wait. Okay. I didn't think about it because I was like, wait, if they're pulling from his eyelids, wouldn't that be more exposed? But like, art.
Scott, what? No. Get away from me. I took a few steps back, almost afraid the man would lunge at me. But he didn't. He just stood there. I see. Maybe I didn't do it quite right. And with that he walked off, disappointed. He took a book out of his pocket and started flipping through it. For some weird reason he seemed familiar. This town was giving me the creeps. I needed to get out of here as fast as I could. But as I turned around,
Oh no.
I saw that most of the people walking by had distorted their faces in one way or another. It was as if a virus had spread while we were looking for help. This was madness. I needed to get out of here. But where to? And where was May?
What the game about? So, this game is a visual novel with 3 stories into one. Doesn't matter which order you do. We are on the second story, and they are all interconnected. And so far, all we know is that our boy woke up in an alleyway, hungry, not knowing where he was, went into this house, took a nap, and now he's like having these nightmares and going through these doors. Stuff's happening. But, yeah, we're on door number 2. The first door was called Pets. And it seems like in that town or world, the pets have become these like huge monsters that ate everybody or has everybody scared. And they're these plants that if you eat them, they twist your arms. They damage you. And there's no police or military, so like the town is just kind of in fear. And in this world, there's some performer dude with 3 faces, and everybody was like, ha, he's so funny. And there were a bunch of books next to him. So I have a feeling everybody that was laughing at the performer picked up one of his books and were like, I'm gonna make myself funny too. So it's just, you know, normal spooky horror stuff.
I was getting kind of worried. I took a look around and thought about what to do.
Stay on the main street, should be easier to find May, or police station, go through the back streets and avoid attracting any unwanted attention. Here's the thing, we keep running into monsters when we're in the alleyways. But besides them being like, look at my face, they don't seem too aggressive, so I'm gonna say...
Stay on the main street. It should be easier to find May or a police station that way.
Sounds totally normal.
I felt uneasy around these people, but I didn't want to negatively impact my chances at finding help. Quickly, I hurried off while trying to ignore everyone's gaze. But wherever I went, those people were everywhere. On top of that, the town seemed to have no end. I couldn't find a road that led out, no matter how long I searched. Just as I was wondering about what to do, I recognized someone standing near a building. Scott, there you are. You had me worried.
Why are you hiding your hands?
May, oh. I'm sorry. I had something to take care of.
I don't trust you, May.
That sounded oddly vague. But I didn't want to be rude, so I dropped it. She did give me a sandwich after all. May, did you have any luck finding your way back home?
No, I'm still in town with you.
Scott, no, still nothing. And on top of that, there are all of these weird people walking around. May, actually, I know someone who may be able to help.
I swear, if you say the performer.
Scott, you do? May, yes. They don't live far from here. How about I introduce you? May, and no worries, they don't own a dog.
Why does that matter?
Scott, oh. Yeah, sure. Wasn't she new in this town? Maybe she met them while we were separated.
Mm-mm. Don't trust her. Don't trust May.
And why did she bring up dogs? It's not like I ever told her whether I did or didn't mind dogs. Perhaps I said something during my small talk attempts that made her think that way. I considered questioning her, but this was the only lead I had found so far and I didn't want to lose this chance. We arrived at an old, tall building. I watched May from the corner of my eye. Something seemed different about her, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Perhaps it was just my imagination. May, they live on the highest floor. May, this building is pretty old and not many people live here anymore, so it's a bit run down. May, I'd appreciate it if you went first.
Uh, you go first. I don't know which door.
I didn't protest and led us into the structure. The building was quite desolate, just as she had said. This place made me feel uneasy. I didn't want to stay here any longer than I had to. Not only was I afraid that everything would come down on our heads any minute, I could only imagine what could lurk in these abandoned halls. I didn't blame her for wanting me to go first. After climbing a set of stairs, May spoke up again. May, it should be the door at the end of this hall. I saw the door she was referring to. It was probably the only door in the entire building that wasn't damaged. The clean coat of paint was an eerie contrast in the ravaged environment. Scott, and the one living there can help me? No reply. I turned around and saw nothing. May was gone. Again. She could have at least said goodbye. I walked up to the door to knock, but it was already open. Maybe I had the wrong door after all. Yet May had seemed certain. What should I do?
Then take a look around. I ain't going in there.
I shouldn't barge into a stranger's home like this. The door being open didn't mean that I could just enter. My eyes wandered around the hallway, scanning it for anything notable. Maybe I could wait for them outside. I had noticed that the air in here felt oddly heavy. I made my way back down the hallway when I heard some noise from the ground floor downstairs. Was it another tenant? Maybe they could help me. I wasn't very hopeful, considering how badly it's been going so far. But it was worth a shot. Slowly, I creeped down the steps.
Do I hear someone munching on flesh again?
I could make out a rhythmic, squishy sound that was getting louder and louder. An uneasy feeling was starting to set in my stomach. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, I saw a red trail on the ground. Blood. It must be blood. It led into an apartment. Its door was wide open. My feet froze. The sound was getting louder, more frantic. I needed to get out of this building. Something horrible was happening in there. But to get to the exit, I had to pass by that door. Past the blood trail. I considered going back up. But then I would be stuck in a dead end. My feet slowly started to move down the last couple of steps. Whoever or whatever was in that room couldn't notice me. Who knew what would happen to me if they did? The squishing became louder and louder the closer I got. Before long, I was standing right by the open door. The nameplate next to it read Frederick Steiner, a name that seemed oddly familiar. I considered quickly running past, but my curiosity overwhelmed me. I peeked in. The room was almost pitch black. The sole window barely let any light through. I saw rhythmic movement in the middle of the room. Someone was hunched over something. As the person lifted their hand once again, I saw a metallic glint in the light. They were holding a knife. They were stabbing someone. Over and over again. The techniques in the book are too simple. I don't have time for these childish games if I want to be as funny as the most hilarious one. Taking from the face? Nonsense. Why just the face? There's so much missed potential. This is exactly what my studies have been leading up to. She just doesn't get it? But I do. I'll show her what it means to be funny. They were whispering to themselves in a gurgling voice. I had no idea what they were talking about. They must have gone mad. I stepped away, ready to leave this building for good. But my foot slipped on the wet blood.
Oh my god, no.
I managed to catch myself and avoid falling. But I couldn't avoid making a sound. The movement inside the room suddenly stopped. Silence. Then their head slowly turned my way.
What we got going on here? I see a hand, flesh, intestines. I think that's brain. Okay. How do you see?
An exception has occurred. 1.1.0. 7.
I did it again. Hold on. Hold on.
Rollback. Self-voicing disabled.
A fun bug I've noticed, X, is if you have voicing enabled, sometimes when you get jiggle text, the game doesn't like it. Who's there? The person frantically shook their grotesque head around. It seemed like they couldn't see me past all of their face modifications. Yeah, don't worry. I thought it was part of the game. I was like, oh wow, super meta. And I was like, oh no, it's just me breaking it. The various body parts fused to their skin wiggled like worms crawling out of their head. Is that you, Sabrina? Have you come to your senses? Have you finally realized that this is the only way to make an actually funny face? Look at me. Soon I will be the most hilarious one. And then, his breathing was getting heavier than before. They went back to dismantling the body in front of them. I was safe. They really couldn't see me. I was safe. Trying not to make a sound, I stepped over the bloody trail and very cautiously made my way towards the exit. I definitely didn't want to get caught. Soon I was in front of the exit door. I could finally get out. I hope that wasn't May that he was stabbing. But just as I was about to grab the handle, a sudden wave of fatigue came over me. Oh, hi, Adobo. Again. It was as if I had stepped into a veil. The air had gotten heavier and my breathing became more ragged. I clutched my chest as I tried to figure out what was going on. A throbbing pain pulsed through my arm. It was as if something had stabbed me. I tried to turn around, but I'd already become too weak. My feet gave in and my vision darkened. I could feel a presence near me. The person from the apartment? Before I could find out, my consciousness faded. Achievement unlocked. The most hilarious man. So that was door 2. How are you doing, Diggins? Not Diggins, sorry, Adobo. There's so many names. I know Diggins is probably listening because he has to work. So I figured I'd check in on him, but thank you, Adobes. All right, third door. Oh, goody. so many hands. Trapped. Yay. I wonder if there's any jiggle text in this story. Okay, so that's the hilarious man. All right.
Self-voicing enabled.
Should be good.
I shot awake, panting. My eyes darted around the room, but everything was quiet. I seemed to be safe. A nightmare. Seems like I just had a nightmare. There were people laughing. And distorted faces. And I couldn't remember. But it must have been terrifying. The pulsing pain in my head slowly subsided. I took deep breaths and kept mumbling to myself that it had all been a dream. Nothing more. After calming down, I decided to take another look around the house.
Maybe once we do all 3 doors, maybe the doors in this house will be open.
The fact that no one was here, even though the lights were on, was still nagging at the back of my mind. But what I saw when I opened the bedroom door was not what I had expected. Instead of the living room I had entered the bedroom through, I found myself in the middle of a long hallway.
Okay.
A row of doors, interspersed with handrails, covered each wall. I could hear people chatting in the distance. Where was I? And how did I get here? This place looked like a hotel at first glance. A plate with a room number was hanging next to all the doors. Mine was 215. As I moved towards the end of the hallway, I took a more thorough look at my surroundings. The floor was lined with a red carpet featuring an elaborate design. The red and white walls complemented the elegant atmosphere. On the ceiling hung electrical lamps that were similar in design to candles. As I stepped out of the hallway, I was momentarily blinded by the bright ambience. A huge chandelier was hanging on the ceiling of the grand hall I had stepped into. I seemed to be on the upper floor of this two-floor structure. The ground floor, apparently a restaurant area, was lined with tables. Multiple people were dining and happily chatting with each other. A huge window across from me showed a big body of water. Was I in a hotel by the beach? The water looked oddly close. I needed answer. Quickly, I located the stairs and hurried down towards the restaurant. Luckily, one of the waiters was just passing by as I reached the bottom. "Scott, excuse me, could you tell me where I am?" He answered without hesitation. "Waiter, you're in the restaurant area, sir. If you'd like to order something, you need to." "Scott, no, I mean this whole hotel." This time he did hesitate. "Waiter, well, you're on the Kajamath cruise ship, if that's what you mean. Is everything in order?"
Okay, so Kajamath was the name of the town from the first door, which I'm assuming the second door might have been also Kajamath, at least a different part, but... Okay, it's all related.
Cruise ship? How did I get on a cruise ship? Had I been kidnapped? Would my kidnappers let me walk around freely? The waiter had a concerned look on his face. He glanced over at his colleague, who had gestured to him with a stern expression on her face. "Waiter, I could call someone over to help you. Waiter, or you could find someone at the help desk just at the end of that hallway." He gestured back up the stairs and pointed at another hallway next to the one I had come out of. "Scott, thank you, I'll just ask for more information at the help desk." I didn't want to hold him up any longer. The waiter's colleague had by now crossed her arms in front of her chest and was tapping her foot impatiently. The waiter hesitantly nodded and turned away from me. A cruise ship? I didn't remember ever booking a ticket for a cruise. But as I rummaged through my pockets, I did find a keycard with the number 215 on it. Right, the help desk. I should be able to find out more there. I made my way back up the stairs. The room at the end of the second hallway looked like a lounge area. It was filled with comfortable sofas and armchairs. Multiple groups of people were chatting to each other. I could see children playing near what I assumed to be the help desk. I quickly approached the man standing at the desk, who perked up from the documents he was browsing. "Employee, hi, how can I help you?" "Scott, I'm a bit lost." "Well, I don't really remember booking a cruise. Is there a way to get off early?" He looked at me with a similarly puzzled expression as the waiter. "Employee, ERM. Could you tell me your room number?" "Scott, yes, it's 215. But I don't really remember booking it." I took out my keycard and showed it to him. The man opened a drawer and started expertly flipping through the folders. Shortly after, he pulled out a document. "Employee, is this your name and signature?" He turned it so that I could see it. To my surprise, the name and the signature written on it were indeed mine. But how? How could I forget signing up for a cruise? "Employee, as for your second question, we're currently on the last day of our trip." "Employee, the ship will arrive at the Kajamath port tomorrow at noon." "Employee, are you here with anyone?"
I don't think so.
He threw a skeptical look my way. I must have sounded like a weirdo. "Scott, no, I'm alone. I'll just sort things out tomorrow then." The employee shrugged and put the folder back into the drawer. "Employee, don't hesitate to let me know if you need any more help." I turned around, wondering what my next course of action should be when Scott, ow,
Is it May?
something had hit one of my legs hard. I stumbled, but managed to stop my fall by holding onto the help desk. Oh God, are you okay? Lanny, you need to pay more attention.
Wait, Lanny's from the first door. We got eaten, but she's new.
I looked up to see what had hit me. Initially, I had assumed that I had walked into some piece of furniture. But that wasn't the case. A boy was sitting on the ground in front of me. Someone was standing over him, making sure that he was all right. As soon as she had confirmed that he wasn't hurt, she turned to me. I'm very sorry about that. Are you hurt anywhere? Lanny, make sure to apologize. Lanny, sorry, I wasn't looking. Scott, no, it's all right, I'm okay. I turned to the boy named Lanny. Scott, are you okay? Lanny, yeah, it's nothing. His look was fixed to the ground. It seemed like he really did feel bad about bumping into me. The woman had in the meanwhile fixed her gaze onto my face. Are you sure you're all right? You look rather pale. Scott, no, I'm fine.
I just woke up on a cruise ship I don't remember booking.
That didn't seem to convince her. My confusion and frustration about being on this boat had shown on my face. Would you like to sit down with us for a bit? I have some medicine against seasickness. It might help. Now that she was mentioning it, I was feeling a bit woozy. I had been too preoccupied with figuring out what was going on to notice. She led me to one of the sofas and motioned me to sit down.
Texas power woes linger as New England girds? New England girds for deep freeze? Goody.
Sabrina, my name is Sabrina, by the way. This boy here is Lanny and the girl over there is Amy.
Sabrina! You're the one who ran away from her husband in the second door. Unless you were the one getting stabbed. But Amy is the one who had her arms twisted in the first door.
She motioned to a girl sitting at a table nearby who was brooding over a piece of paper. Scott, my name is Scott. So, are they your family? Sabrina stopped rummaging through her handbag and looked at me with an amused smile on her face. Sabrina, oh, no, they are my neighbor's kids. We're good friends and I paint with their children sometimes. Sabrina, I'm currently looking after them. While Sabrina was still looking for the medicine, Lanny approached his sister and peered over her shoulder. He then grimaced and walked over to our sofa to take a seat next to Sabrina. Sabrina, here you go.
Gonna be 0 degrees Celsius on Monday? Oh, well, yay for you. Oh, I told my coworkers about the engine heater block thing, and they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, apparently it's a standard tool up in Canada. And they were like, oh my God, I need to tell my husband to get that, because apparently their cars froze and they couldn't get to work either. And I was like, hey, did you know about this device? Because I didn't. So, knowledge has been passed on to the Texans during this freeze.
She handed me a pill from a small bottle. Out of the corner of my eyes I saw Lanny motion to Amy. Lanny, I don't get how she can be so into drawing. It's boring.
Lanny, you shush your mouth. Drawing's amazing.
Lanny, she's been at it for at least half an hour and it still looks terrible. Amy, hey, I heard that. Amy shot an angry gaze at Lanny. Sabrina, good art needs time. Maybe you should work on some art as well.
Yeah, Lanny.
Amy, yeah, maybe it'd help with your hyperactivity. Lanny, I'm not hyperactive, I'm just healthy. That's what Dad says.
They say it's recommended when it gets below -15 Celsius. Well, Texans don't know how to handle freeze ice. Like, we can handle cold, but not like freeze and ice like you guys. So, anything to help. Like, what was it? My neighbor's AC unit is like right underneath the like roof edge, and somehow all the roof like ice melted, and landed on top of it, and then that froze their entire AC unit. So while I was checking on my unit, which I was like, cool, there's no ice frozen on my thing, so it can, like, you know, still suck in air and stuff. I saw theirs was frozen, so I was like, and I tried to get the ice off just to, like, help with the inflow and stuff. But yeah, no, the freeze is great.
Sabrina, I guess so. Sabrina, if I had any ounce of knowledge about music, I could help you relieve your energy that way at least. Sabrina, though it's also been a while since my art. Sabrina trailed off with a sad look on her face. Lanny, don't worry, it's okay. I've been figuring things out on my own. Lanny, also, I've been asking Dad and Mom if they can buy me a melodica.
Melodica? What's a melodica? Hey Google, what's a melodica? I'm assuming it's like a harmonica. Wait! A melodica is a handheld, free reed instrument similar to a pump, organ, or harmonica. You know those little keyboards that people blow into? That's what a melodica is. That's what it is. It's those little things. Ah. Well, now I know what they're called.
Lanny, I'm pretty sure that I'll get one soon. Scott, you two really seem to have a knack for art and music. Your parents must be proud of you. Lanny, I don't know about Amy, but I'm pretty sure they're proud of me.
The only thing I know about the melodica is that one person who would play video game characters' theme songs at conventions while she'd be like walking up behind them and she'd be like playing, like, you know, Legend of Zelda, and people be like, and they'd turn around and see her and she'd be like, oh, and she'd just run off. And I'm like, beautiful. Beautiful.
Amy shot another angry glance Lanny's way, but didn't retort. She seemed to be the mature one in their sibling relationship.
Imagine because she's the oldest.
Hey, do you have any more of those pills?
Uh-oh.
I jumped slightly. A voice had called out from right behind me. As I turned around, I saw a grumpy-looking man. Sabrina grabbed her handbag once again. Sabrina, another one, Frederick. It says on the package that one should be enough.
This is the guy we saw laughing and stabbing.
Frederick, humph, apparently not. I can't work while feeling like crap. Why did I agree to go on this trip?
Because you love your wife?
Sabrina gave him a skeptical look, but handed him a pill without saying anything. Frederick turned around on the spot and trotted off. Sabrina sighed. Sabrina, sorry about that, he's usually more pleasant. Sabrina, that, coupled with an upcoming deadline for an article. Scott, so he's a journalist? Sabrina, no, that's not what I meant. Sabrina, he's a biologist and he's been working hard on getting something published in that one Sabrina, if you ask me, his obsession with getting more publications is a bit unhealthy. A fellow scientist? Now that I thought about it, I hadn't written anything in a while myself.
Oh.
Way more pressing matters had taken up my time recently. The spores were still. I jolted up. Sabrina looked at me in surprise.
Spores? Go on.
Scott, thank you for the medicine, I feel better now. I should get going, though. I was too anxious to sit still. Even though I knew that there was nothing I could do until the ship came into port the next day. Sabrina, all right, take care. Feel free to let me know if you need any more medicine. I thanked her again, said goodbye to the siblings and headed back towards the sleeping quarters. But I stopped just before the hallway that led to my room. My eyes wandered towards the big window. The sun had started to set, but I didn't feel tired at all, likely because I had woken up just recently. And so I decided that the best way to dispel some of my anxiety was to take in some fresh air. I continued on past the hallway and out onto the deck. A salty breeze hit my face. I could hear the soft splashing of waves against the hull of the ship.
I'm just trying to think like how the spook is gonna come in.
This place was way emptier than I had expected. Less than a handful of couples and some families were standing near the edge of the railing. One of those couples had their dog with them. Every now and then, when it heard the call of a seagull, it jerked its head around. Were one of the pairs on this deck perhaps Amy's and Lanny's parents? Absent-mindedly, I approached the railing right by the door and looked over. We were very high up. Looking down at the waves hitting the ship hull had an eerily hypnotic effect. Combined with the cool air and the sound of water, it calmed me down. Hey.
It's her again.
I jerked up. Someone was standing at the railing right next to me. Sorry, I didn't mean to surprise you. Scott, no worries, it looked like she had been standing there for a while. Did I somehow overlook her? You looked a bit confused, so I wanted to ask if you're alright. Scott, oh, well. I guess I'm a bit lost. I had a feeling she'd be no more understanding than the employees, so I decided not to tell her too much. I'm a bit lost too. It might sound weird, but I'm not sure how I ended up here. Wait, that sounded oddly familiar to my situation. But she seemed to misinterpret my surprised look. I know, it sounds odd. It's just like in dreams. Whenever you try to remember how you got to the place you are dreaming about, you can't. So I wasn't the only one. There was someone else here who was experiencing the same thing I was.
Are we having some weird Inception moment?
Knowing this lifted my spirits. Just as I was about to tell her about my situation, she suddenly perked up. Sorry, I should go. I promised to meet someone. And with that she hurried off before I could say anything. I was slightly frustrated by the fact that I hadn't been able to confide in her. But I could seek her out tomorrow, I guess. The sun had meanwhile almost set. A blood-red stripe was visible on the horizon. I set off back towards my room. With nothing better to do, I got into bed and tried to sleep. My night was restless. Half of the time I wasn't sure if I was awake or asleep. Weird sounds kept waking me up. By the time the sun had risen, it felt like I had barely slept at all. Today would be the day we'd arrive at a place called Kajamath. From there I would be able to get back home one way or another. I rubbed my eyes as I opened the door that led out into the hallway. But something was wrong. The hallway looked different. Was it shorter? There definitely used to be more doors here. It was as if a new wall and door had appeared where the hallway originally continued to the restaurant area. I approached the new door and tried to turn the doorknob, but it was locked. Slowly panic set in. Was I trapped in here? Did everyone already leave? There was no way they had left me behind, right?
No.
I quickly approached one of the doors in the hallway and knocked. Silence. I tried the next and then the third. All was silent. My heart rate accelerated. I forced myself to calm down and think this through. There was no way they would leave a passenger behind. And even if they did, they would notice sooner or later that I was still in here. The most productive thing to do right now would be checking if the other rooms were open. Maybe I could find a way to make people aware of the fact that I was still in here. I considered which door to try first. Which room should I go into?
I guess the first one?
Room. The room was unfurnished and windowless. A sole light bulb in the middle of the ceiling illuminated it faintly. I could see about 15 people sitting on the dirty ground. Most of them seemed to be adults. But there were a couple children cowering next to what I assumed to be their parents.
Huh?
One person from the group, an older man, raised his head as if waking from a dream. Man, the door. It's open. More and more people lifted their heads and I could feel their stares piercing me. The man was the first to stand up and shuffle towards the door. I stepped aside. But as he tried to cross the threshold, he suddenly stopped. He was frozen in mid-air. His fingers tightened as if he was exerting great effort. Disappointed, he stepped back. "Man, it's no use." He sulked back to his spot and slumped to the floor. The other people in the room lowered their heads, their hopes dashed in an instant. I wasn't sure what was going on, but it was evident that they were in trouble. I quickly walked up to the older man. "Scott, hey, ERM. Do you know what's going on here?" "Man, no. We all woke up in this room and are unable to leave." "Man, and now it seems like you're stuck here with us as well."
What?
My heart stopped for a second and panic slowly started to set in. Was I really trapped in here?
No.
I hastily walked to the door and stepped right through. The man stared at me with wide eyes. "Man, this means that you, instead of the girl, might be able to help us." Right after he uttered those words, some of the people in the room lifted their heads and looked at me. Some with a look of disbelief and some with hope in their eyes. So there was someone else on this ship who could enter and exit this room freely? "Scott, what did she look like?"
Bet it was the girl on the deck with me.
He started explaining. I soon realized that this description fit someone I knew.
Unless it's Sabrina.
It sounded just like the girl I had met on the deck yesterday. So she got into this mess as well. "Man, we asked her to help us, but she just laughed and left." That wasn't quite how I remembered her, but it wasn't like I'd known her for a long time. Was her nice appearance just an act? I shifted my attention back to the man before me. "Scott, there might be people behind the other doors that we could possibly help. Scott, please let me know if you have anything that you don't need or if you are in need of something."
Wait, what? Please let me know if you have anything that you don't need. Or if you are in need of something. Oh, I guess like whatever they don't need, maybe I could use that to free other people, is what he's
"Scott,
saying.
that way I can make sure that everyone gets out of here safely." Some people nodded in agreement while the majority stayed stoic. A woman stood up, got something from a shelf and approached me. "Woman, we found some medicine in this room." "Woman, we can't give away all of it. But maybe it will help someone." The label was barely legible. I could make out the letters Funite.
Funite?
I still gladly took the bottle and thanked her as she trotted back. "Man, please, if you find any food, bring it to us." "Scott, all right. I should head out." With these words, I stepped back through the door. It closed behind me as if a wind gust had suddenly blown through the hallway. "Which room 2?
Room 2.
The door creaked open and light spilled into the damp room. A crowd of about 40 people occupied the space. Some were sitting on the floor and some were leaning against the dirty walls. Suddenly, someone near the door darted up and shoved me aside. It was Frederick, who I had met only briefly while I was chatting with Sabrina.
Oh, Frederick.
He tried to force himself through the door, but was stopped mid-air. An invisible force was pushing him back.
It's not me, buddy.
Some more people approached the door and tried the same, but to no avail. "Frederick, damn it." Frederick slammed his fist into the wall. "Frederick, I thought this was my chance." Frustrated, he went back to where he was originally sitting. Since I had been in a room like this before, I knew that I was able to travel back and forth. "Scott, hey, ERM. A few of the people looked up as I started speaking. "Scott, I should be able to walk in and out." "Scott, there are also survivors in the other rooms." "Scott, I might be able to get you some things if you need anything specific." Frederick shot up and walked up to me until he was way too close for comfort. "Frederick, we need food. You'll get some for us, right?" That sounded more like a threat than a request. "Scott, yeah, I can do that if I find some." I stepped back so I didn't have to smell his sour sweat anymore. Scott, do you happen to have anything here that you don't need? Scott, just in case other people trapped on this ship need anything specific. He looked at me as if I had just made a joke. Frederick, what? No. Even if we had anything we wouldn't just be giving it away. I looked at him skeptically. Frederick, all right, I know what you want. I have a gun with me. If you bring me food, I'll trade it for the gun. A gun? I had never used a firearm before and I wasn't sure how a gun would help me in this situation.
Okay, so room 1 just has 15 people, nothing to offer. Room 2, 40 people, I can get a gun.
Hesitantly, I agreed to escape Frederick's impatient gaze. Maybe it would come in handy after all.
What's in the other 2 rooms?
Scott, but you'll have to make sure to share the food with the others. Frederick, all right, whatever. Just give us something, all right? Scott, I don't have anything with me right now, sorry. Frederick, then get the hell out of here and find something. He shouted at me and shoved me out of the room. I tripped and fell to the floor as he slammed the door shut in front of my face. That guy was a huge jackass. But I still felt bad for the other people in the room. I'd have to go back there eventually if I wanted to help them. I dusted myself off and turned towards the other doors. I entered the dimly lit room.
Oh God.
It was desolate except for a few cans of food and a few water bottles in one of the corners.
Oh yay!
There were also 2 rather young children, 1 boy and 1 girl, in the middle of the room.
Oh, I see what they're doing. Room 1, 15 people, some kids. Room 2, 40 adults. Room 3, just a boy and a girl, but they have the food and water.
As I saw the girl kneeling over the boy's motionless body, my heart dropped. It was Amy and Lanny.
What do you mean motionless?
She looked up at me with pleading eyes as I rushed to their side. Lanny was covered in sweat, indicating a heavy fever. His limbs were heavily bruised and he was heaving. I glanced over at Amy. Fortunately, she seemed to be all right. Scott, I'm Scott, we met yesterday. An exception has occurred. 1 point. Scott,
It happened
I'm
again.
Scott, self-voicing disabled.
You're Amy, right? Yeah! Jiggle text breaks the game. Her voice was shaking. Lanny's sick. Don't worry, Amy, we'll find a way to help him. She hesitantly nodded. That seemed to calm her down a bit. Exception, yeah, anytime there's like jiggle text, if you have the voice thing on, then an exception occurs, which is pretty much just me quietly breaking the game. You know, what I normally do. I had some medicine on me, or at least that's what the woman who gave it to me called it. I couldn't really read the label. Sure, give it to Lanny, hope for the best. It seemed like he would die if nothing was done, right? Like, I feel like if I leave this room and come back, he'll be dead. I decided to take the risk and administer the medicine to him. I have some medicine with me. He should be alright in no time if he takes it. I'm lying through my teeth. I had sounded more confident than I actually was in the hopes of cheering Amy up. I made sure he was conscious enough to drink it. Then I carefully lifted his head and put the bottle to his mouth. I mean, the lady said it was medicine, so I'm kind of like hoping she didn't just give me poison. He slowly gulped it down and I set his head back down. Will he be okay now? I think so, but it'll take some time for the medicine to take effect. All that was left to do was to hope that what I gave him would help against his fever. You seem to have some food and water here. I'm gonna take it. Do you think I could take some of it with me? More people are trapped in here and they don't seem to have any. I don't mind. Thank you. She didn't seem very talkative. But that was to be expected considering how concerned about her brother she must be. I'll let you know once I find something that can help you, okay? Okay. She turned back towards her brother. I walked by the canned food and considered taking some with me. I'm gonna take half. I decided to take part of it with me, that way they would still have some left. I left the room and found myself back in the hallway. Alright, 4. The room seemed to be empty except for a lonely light bulb hanging from the ceiling. It didn't seem to be working properly, as it barely gave off any light and flickered every now and then. It took my eyes a while to get adjusted to the darkness. Oh no. And right as they did, I realized that the room wasn't actually as empty as I had thought. If there's a monster in here, and I'm about to get eaten because I don't have a gun. A huge dog that I hadn't seen right away because of the poor lighting was just a few feet in front of me. And it was determined to rip me into pieces. I hastily stumbled backwards, almost tripping. This was it, I thought. I was gonna get mauled. But nothing happened. All I could hear was the rattling of a chain. I slowly opened my eyes and saw that the dog was fortunately chained to the wall per its red collar. Oh, thank God. It was vehemently struggling to get free. After confirming that there was indeed no risk of it getting free, I took a closer look around the room. There were small, glittering objects strewn across the ground next to the animal. Next to the dog was a body, a badly mutilated one. A foul feeling spread through my stomach. Did the dog do this? The corpse was lying too close to the dog to examine it. Instead, I cautiously inched closer to the objects scattered on the ground next to it. I picked one up and examined it. It was a bullet. I had no use for the bullet yet, but if I did in the future, I'd know where to find one. When I took another close look at the area behind the dog, I saw that there was an opening in the wall. It seemed to lead into another section of the ship. This was the first time since getting trapped here that I had seen a possible escape route. The only problem was a furious animal blocking it. I couldn't think of a way to get around the dog without getting mauled, and so I decided to retreat for now and look for a way to get past it without getting myself in danger. Suddenly, I felt the floor beneath me vibrate with increasing intensity. The intensity of the rumbling increased, and soon I was thrown from side to side. I struggled to stabilize myself, but ultimately failed. My back hit the wall hard and I fell to the ground. I rolled into a ball, trying to protect my head as I slid along the floor. The sound of metal breaking apart filled my ears. It was deafening. And then stopped, just as suddenly as it had started. I stayed in a fetal position for a while longer, fearing that everything would start shaking again. But it seemed like it was finally over. Were the people inside the rooms all right? Had we perhaps run ashore? Would someone come and rescue us? Now that we were on land, a myriad of questions filled my mind. My eyes fell on the locked door to the hallway. Something about it was off. It was barely noticeable, but it seemed like the door was slightly skewed. I quickly approached it, turned the doorknob, and pulled on it. It was still stuck, but it did feel like I'd be able to pry it open with more force. And so I tugged again and again, each time the door inching more and more open until... The door flew open and I was thrown back. A strong gust of wind hit my face. I reflexively closed my eyes. I celebrated internally. Finally, I'd be able to get out of here and look for help. Bye, Blondie. Finally, this nightmare would end, but I was mistaken. What I expected to see beyond the door was the hall and restaurant from the day before, but my expectations were utterly betrayed. Oh, it's an arm! The ocean. A huge body of water was in the distance. As I looked down, I saw that we were hundreds of meters above ground. How were we moving on land? What shocked me the most was that I could make out thin, long legs supporting this ship. What? Their movements were so smooth that it felt like we were floating. It was as if I was inside something that was alive. My eyes wandered across the rest of the ship below me. It must have broken in half. The form of the tear was quite odd, though. It looked like a huge bite mark. As if something even bigger than this cruise ship had ripped into it. But that couldn't be true. There was no animal big enough that could have bitten off such a huge chunk of the ship. As the creature I was on made a sharp turn, the ocean drifted out of view. My grip on the doorframe tightened. I feared I'd get thrown off. Then it stopped. My eyes widened in shock as I saw the scene before me. The view was surreal. Please show me. Oh no, never mind. Don't show me! Those look like the plants that we tried to eat. Okay. Wait, so am I in one of these things? One single town was standing in the middle of a wasteland. Wandering through that wasteland were enormous, outlandish creatures amongst gigantic mushrooms. They looked like something straight out of a nightmare. I wiped my eyes trying to dispel the illusion before me, but it wouldn't go away. My breathing became ragged and my chest contracted painfully. I had to accept this as my reality. In a trance, I stepped away from the doorframe. A wave of rage overcame me as I lashed out and kicked the wall. A dull pain spread throughout my foot, but I barely noticed it. Tears started to well up in my eyes. Was there even any reason for me to go on? Why shouldn't I just go back to my room, lie down in bed, and stay there? I leaned against the wall and stared at the ceiling. My feet were shaking, but I was finally starting to calm down. I knew that getting angry wouldn't help. What I've seen wasn't logical in any way. It went against everything I knew. I was a scientist, damn it! So not being able to understand this place frustrated me. Above all, it scared me. But giving up wasn't the right thing to do. It wasn't the logical choice if I really wanted this nightmare to end. I'd escape sooner or later and get myself into a better position eventually. That's what I hoped, at least. This ship may still be suspended high above ground, but there must be some way to get down. I would figure out what to do next once I was out of here. I closed the door and slowly let my eyes drift over the 4 doors in front of me. Okay, 4 is dog, 3 is kids, 2 is guns and bullets, so boop! Take a quick glance around to see if Frederick was nearby. To my determined, he was. He jumped up as he saw me come in. Hey, did you bring anything useful with you? Didn't even offer so much as a greeting. I do have food on me. Maybe I could trade it for the weapon. Yes. Decided to give the food to Frederick. It was probably a good idea to have a weapon with me in case I ran into something. I have some food. I can give it to you and you can share it with the others. As if to make sure that no one was watching. Then he took a gun from his pocket. Don't tell anyone you gave me this, okay? I was definitely not okay with keeping the food a secret and was about to protest. But he had already taken the food and shoved me out of the door into the hallway. He threw the gun at my feet and slammed the door shut. What a jerk. At least I had the gun. But I've seen my fair share of crimes. How hard could shooting a gun be? I checked the magazine. It was empty, that's fine. Of course it was empty, that's why he handed it over so easily. Otherwise he would have threatened with me instead of trading it. How could I have been fooled? Put away towards the other doors. Alright, let me go to 1, because I think I still have some food. Everything seemed different. The faces of the people here had darkened considerably. I spotted the old man that I talked to not too long ago and approached him. But he didn't even look up as I greeted him. He just sat there with a blank expression on his face, not even moving an inch. Hey, is everything okay? No response. As I looked around, I noticed that none of the others had moved from their spot. Nor had any of them looked up since I entered this room. I tried to talk to them, but they wouldn't respond. It was as if they suddenly turned into statues. Their eyes were devoid of any signs of life. I tried shaking them awake, but they didn't react. Hello? Can anyone hear me? I cried out into the room in desperation, but my words echoed back emptily. What was going on? What had happened to them? Even though I was surrounded by people, I felt alone. I jerked my head around. I scanned the dim room with my eyes, until I finally saw something in one of the corners move ever so slightly. My heart started to race as I stepped closer. I couldn't quite make out what had made the sound, but it was probably a human, right? Uh-oh, maybe I shouldn't have come back in here. It made a gurgling sound, and I hesitated for a bit. Horrific images of all kinds of creatures popped into my mind. I shook my head and tried to get them out of my head. After a few more cautious steps, I was finally close enough to see it. It was a girl. No, it was just some girl. It was the same girl that I ran into on the deck. Her body was limp, but as opposed to the other people in this room, she seemed more or less conscious. I cautiously picked her up and made my way towards the door. The words of the old man echoed in my ears. He told me that she was able to pass through that door, just like I was. But why hadn't she left the room by herself? Did something happen that she got caught up in? And how did she get in here anyway? I would have noticed her in the hallway. I turned towards my room at a bed, and she would probably be safe there. Opening the door while carrying a person was no easy feat, but I finally succeeded and put her on the bed. Home? Her facial expression changed from one of pain to one of relaxation. She instantly fell asleep. I debated whether I should wake her up and try to get some information out of her, but it didn't seem like she was in any condition to answer questions. Seeing her asleep so soundly made me want to take a break as well, but I pushed myself to step out of the door and back into the hallway. I still need to see if there's any way to get out of here. Well, we got it done now. I'm gonna check on the kids. I was worried about those two. All kinds of terrible scenarios had popped into my head. I glanced around the room. They fortunately seemed to still be more or less okay. I approached them. I had given Lonnie some medicine, so he should be doing a little better. How is your brother feeling? Amy did seem to be much more calmer than last time. His head doesn't feel as hot anymore. He's been sleeping for a long time, though. Oh, it's probably fine, yeah? For a second, I considered the worst, but his pulse was fortunately still there. He did seem to be in a better state, and I was hopeful that he would get up soon with enough rest. How about you, Amy? Are you holding up all right? Yeah, I think so. I should get going again. I'll come back soon to check on you and Lonnie again. Okay, I hope you won't have to be away for so long again. Long? I hadn't been out for that long, but it was understandable that she didn't want to be left all alone. She was likely exaggerating. I walked by the can of food and considered taking some with me. Nah. I decided against taking any. I left the room and found myself back in the hallway. Alright, to the dog. Started barking. Still seemed to be the only way out. Went through my options. I had a gun and there were bullets. Yeah. Loaded the gun. It felt rather heavy in my hands as I pointed it at the creature. The dog had stopped barking and was glaring at me with mad eyes. It was as if it knew what the object in my hands was for. My breath was getting heavier. My heartbeat accelerated. My finger twitched and sudden silence engulfed me. It was soon replaced by a high-pitched sound. I had instinctively closed my eyes. I slowly opened them. I swear, if you missed. A red puddle started. Achievement unlocked? How could you? Oh no! Started tainting the air around the dog's corpse. I looked at the gun in my hands and a wave of disgust engulfed me. I forcefully threw it into the corner of the room. Immediately I had started regretting what I'd done to the animal. Cautiously I stepped closer and watched it. I wanted to confirm whether it was really dead. Its body lay on the ground, motionless. It was truly dead, without a doubt. I stepped over it, walked towards the hole in the wall. What I had done weighed heavily on my conscience. I stared into the hole. Oh God. The hole stared back. Before I let the others know, I had to make sure that whatever was on the other side was safe. The hole was rather small and I had trouble fitting through, but I succeeded eventually. After a while, I noticed that something was off. I swear, if this is based off that comic. The hole seemed to go on for longer than it should. I expected to have already come out in the another part of the ship, but it just went on and on. Then a sudden wave of fatigue came over me. It was as if I had stepped into a veil. The air had gotten heavier, my breathing became more ragged. I clutched my chest as I tried to figure out what was going on. A throbbing pain pulsed through my arm. It was as if something had stabbed me. I tried to turn around, but I'd already become too weak. My feet gave in and my vision darkened. I could feel a presence near me. Before I could find out who it was, my consciousness faded. Yo, did I make the wrong choice? Should I have gone back to check on her? Okay, that's all 3 doors. What now? Does my boy wake up? Oh. Oh, well, maybe the door's open? I'm scared. How many times does this make now? Never thought his presence would make such a huge difference. Seems like his use is nearing its end. No need to keep him around then. I wonder how long it'll take until I find another one. Letting it end like this would be quite boring, though. And he did interact with her quite a lot. Maybe I should do one last experiment. Is this the lady that they said don't disappoint her at the beginning? I'll send him off with a bang. He deserves it for helping me so much. Alright, time to go make preparations. What? What? What was... My head felt like it was splitting open. What was I doing? I had seen something. A nightmare. No, it had been real, hadn't it? The pain was nearly unbearable. Images that seemed to have no relation to each other flashed through my mind. A dark room full of people, distorted faces, an ocean. 2 children, a blood trail, a pack of cats, a knife, pain. My head felt as if it was about to burst, and then... It was over. The pain was gone. I steadied myself. The images I had seen, were they hallucinations, or were they memories? My mind was all jumbled up. I called out as I left the bedroom, but no one answered. I pushed the front door, my hand touched the cold doorknob. Sweat started to form on my arm. Was I afraid? Of what? I swallowed hard. My hand finally moved and I turned the doorknob. As I stepped outside, I noticed that everything looked normal. My breathing slowed. I hadn't noticed how tense my body had become. I stepped into a narrow alleyway that seemed to be leading to a busier part of the town. It was bustling with life. Something about the people walking by was off, but it was hard to put a finger on it. I was too far away. I decided to avoid the main street for now and instead went the other direction. My instincts told me that was the right thing to do. Right as I turned into another alleyway, I saw something from the corner of my eyes. Had someone just entered one of the buildings? I hadn't turned my head quick enough. This brilliantly white structure seemed out of place amidst the gray houses that were lining the street. As I trotted closer, I noticed that it looked awfully familiar to the lab I had worked in. No, it was the lab. What was it doing here? I stood in front of it for a while, dumbfounded, but there was no mistaking it. This was my lab. The easiest way to make sure was entering it. The interior looked exactly like I remembered it. No one was at the reception, meaning no one to manually open the door. But I fortunately still knew the passcode. I made my way upstairs and walked towards Section M. On the way, I tried to keep my eyes and ears peeled in case one of my colleagues was around. But the place seemed to be totally deserted. That wasn't the only thing that was bothering me, though. Everything was oddly clean. Wait, is your lab normally hella dirty? Most people would likely not think about this something to be concerned about. The problem was that there was no way someone had been able to find the time to tidy up the lab. Not only had we lost a big part of our staff, no one was in the right mood to bother with keeping things clean. Wait, so you worked in a dirty lab? Okay. Sure. As I was contemplating what this might mean, I finally reached my destination, my office. The door was slightly ajar. Did someone break in? I cautiously opened it. The room was empty. My desk was gone. My file cabinets were gone. Even the wallpaper was gone. What had happened here? The only thing present was a single sheet of paper in the middle of the room. I hesitantly walked towards it. Duh! The door behind me suddenly slammed shut and I jerked around. Was it the wind, or did someone slam it shut? But there was no door. I stood there in disbelief. Then I slowly turned around and looked back at the sheet of paper on the ground. My hands began to shake. The closer I got to the piece of paper, the worse their trembling became. I hesitantly let my eyes wander over the red writing. Thank you for participating in my experiments. Oh, God. Oi! Oh! Twins? Achievement unlocked. Not all mysteries solved yet. Ah! Well, good job, everybody! I'm guessing there's multiple endings, and I did not do good, maybe? Dang it. GG's. Thank you, Rex. Thank you. Thank you. Where? I will say, though, the art was really good. It was very spoopy. And good squishy meat sounds. It's an odd compliment to give, but it's one you deserve. You got good meat stabbing sounds. Well, with that, it's only been about 2 hours. I think we can start maybe a little bit of Penumbra. What you think? Maybe get at least halfway through it. I see you're redeemed for sound alert, but I don't hear it. Maybe it's delayed. Well. Congratulations on finishing Mycorrhiza. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed the experience. Before you are sent to the title screen, there are a few things that you should know. Yes, tell me. 1. On the title screen, you'll notice a new menu called Extra. Within it, you'll find post-game content and additional information about this game's story. Yes. You'll also have the option to replay the intro and outro and view achievements. We have done our best to make Mycorrhiza as bug-free, typo-free, and enjoyable as possible. I'm sorry, but I found the bugs. It's just the one. It's just the one, technically. If you have auto read on, and then you have the shaky text, the game's like, don't do that. Oops. But you might still encounter some bugs or have suggestions on how to improve it. That's it, just the shaky text. That's it. If you do, then please don't hesitate to fill out our feedback form. I will. Don't worry, I'll do that after stream. You can also find a link to the form in this game's menu. 3, you can get the soundtrack for free on Bandcamp. Really? Ooh. If anything new Mycorrhiza related happens, you can hear about it on their Twitter. And feel free to tweet at us if you create anything related like Let's Plays or fan art. I might do that. Once again, thank you so much for sticking with us on this journey and have fun with discovering the extras. Yes! Let me see those extras! Wait, what's happening? I shot awake, having painfully close sticking. Okay, wait. Nightmare. Yeah, I remember this. Just a dream. Calming down. The fact that no one was here. Be able to find help now that it was daytime. Wait, did I just accidentally click one of the doors? I thought I clicked extra. Notice a sheet of paper that was taped to it. This is new. The handwriting was very crude, but I was able to make out what it said. No escape. Did the game trick me? Had someone been in here while I was asleep? And what did they mean with no escape? I tugged on the door. It didn't budge. I tugged again and again and again, each time with increasing force. It didn't move an inch. Was I actually trapped in here? I quickly moved to the nearest window and tried to open it, but I couldn't. Just like the door, the window too didn't budge. It's as if it was painted on the wall. You better grab that chair and smash it. The same was true for the other windows. In my desperation, I picked up a chair and threw it at the glass. But nothing happened. It didn't even cause a visible scratch. Oh, it's bulletproof glass. This was madness. Had someone locked me in on purpose? How could I escape? I quickly went from door to door and tried to open them, and to my one opened. Did I not check every door properly yesterday? Or did the person who was here before I woke up open it? This room looked like a study, a very small and empty study. The only notable objects were a desk and a computer. Is that a plant? I'm hoping that's a plant. The desk had 4 drawers. Peeking at someone's private possessions didn't sit well with me, but this wasn't the time to think about that. I needed to find a way to escape. I tugged on one of the drawers. Closed. There were keyholes on the front of the drawers. I took another look below the desk and behind the computer, but there was nothing of note. This also meant that there was no phone here I could use to call for help. But if this computer was connected to the internet, then I might be able to contact a colleague or friend. What should I examine? I guess computer? I switched the computer on. It was greeted to a simplistic interface. Well, I like this. They're like, it's an extra. It's like, oh, it's a bonus story. Welcome, Maria. Mind house. What's this? You ate the plant in the first door. I did not eat the plant. You kept reading Frederick's journal on the field. Oh, I didn't even counter that. You finished Sabrina and Frederick's route in the first door. What? I'm guessing if I eat the plant? You're twisting my arm? Yeah, Amy and Lanny's route for a store. Good boy. How do I be a good boy? You got the key in the first door. What? The most hilarious woman. You finished her route of the second door. You finished his route of the second door. I'm guessing if I went through the door, maybe I would have encountered Sabrina. You finished Amy and Lanny's route on the second door. You're a fun guy. You got the second key. You finished the first room in the third door. You finished the second room. You finished the second room in the third. You let Amy and Lanny starve. You didn't give Lanny any medicine. How could you shoot the dog? Starving companions. You got the key. You finished the outro. You read all the extra text. You figured out the code to enter Penjabara mode. This button is only clickable if Steam achievements are out of sync. Okay, that's fine. Well. It's a big old replayable game. Hints to finding keys, part 1. Every door has 1 key. The first door is the easiest. The third door is the hardest. For the third door, the order is important. If you're still having difficulties, sure. Open the journal, find the book at the last moment, learn about their mother, and give her the food. Oh, I'm guessing these are the doors. So, door 1 is obtain the journal, which I'm guessing is eat the plant. Second door, I'm assuming is I'm supposed to go through the door. that May took me to, or possibly going through the alleyway instead of sticking to the main streets. Learn about their mother and give her the food. I'm guessing that's the kids. I just leave them food with them. I don't know. That's pretty cool, though. Well, looks like y'all gonna have to get the game yourself and play it. Because I imagine these are all locked, right? There was no handle. Checking its sides and underside didn't uncover any hidden switches or keyholes. There was no way to open it without breaking it down bit by bit, which would take forever without proper tools. But this drawer might contain a way for me to escape, a spare house key, for example. I decided to work on dismantling the drawer while I wasn't investigating the rest of the room. You can't open the fourth drawer in this version of the game. Thank you for your patience. Ooh, that means there's gonna be an update, and eventually we can open it. Okay, now I know. Well. Do we stop here, or do we try to do a little bit of penumbra? That is my question. Take a nap. I'll get out of here eventually, right? Right? What y'all think? Stop here or try to do a little bit of penumbra? I do have to edit these. I think we'll put a pause here, and we'll actually raid out, because I gotta start raiding out. Oh, come on, show me who's online. Only people are online are Cosmo Quest and GOG. Alright, well, no raid out then. Alright, lovely humans, I'm gonna go work on these videos. Oh, I don't know them, Adobo. But thank you everyone for hanging out, and I will see y'all tomorrow for the next game. Zoo is Marcy. Bye-bye.